Hey guys, we're back for lesson 2. That's 1.2 for both Math 1B and Geometry. We're basically extending this whole idea of how to graph linear equations that are already in slope-intercept form to one step further, where we're given an equation that's not in slope-intercept form, so we got to figure out a way to put it in slope-intercept form. So, if you guys recall from the last lesson, y equals mx plus b is sort of like our guide. It's like our default setting for if I got y by itself, then I'm able to talk about what the m is, the slope, and what the b is, the y-intercept. And if I have those two pieces of information, graphing is not an issue. So that's all we got to do. We have to isolate y using just our knowledge of how to solve equations. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a 1 in front of that x, because that m is the number that's really important here, and if I don't have a number in front of x, I could get confused later on. Now to move this 1x, to move that 1x to the right side of the equation, because again, we're trying to make it look like this, I'm going to subtract it because it's a positive 1x here. I'm subtracting it to move it to the other side. All right? Those two cancel, and you got negative 5y is equal to, and instead of writing 10 minus 1x, I'm going to write it as negative 1x plus 10, just to keep everything comfy with the y equals mx plus b format. Following that, because negative 5 is being multiplied by y, I've got to undo it through division. So I'm dividing negative 5y by negative 5, I'm dividing negative 1x by negative 5, and dividing 10 by negative 5. All right, once I do that, I've got y equals negative 1 divided by negative 5. There's no need to make it a decimal because, remember, slope is a rise over run. It's a rate of change. Fractions are good. So I'm going to keep it as is, and I'm going to eliminate the negatives because a negative divided by a negative yields a positive 1/5 x. Then I'm going to take positive 10 divided by negative 5. That's a whole number. It's negative 2. And our first task, which is to get y by itself, is done. Now we have to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So that shouldn't be a problem. It's going to start at negative 2. All right. So y-intercept, and our slope is going to be positive 1/5. But keep in mind that it also can be down 1, left 5, because, a positive 1/5 is negative over a negative as well. So start the origin. This is our x-axis, y-axis. Go down 2 for our y-intercept. Go up 1, right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, based on this m equals 1/5. And then go down 1, left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's it for number 1. Let's check out number 2. All right, so again, I've got a blank x. I'm going to put a 1 in front of it again. The first two moves are pretty much identical. I subtract 1x from both sides, rewrite it as negative 1x plus 13, and then divide by the number in front of y. That gives me y equals negative 1/3 x. And then here, I'm not going to mess with decimals. I'm just going to say, how many times does 3 go to 13? 3, 6, 9, 12. So 4 times, and it's still positive. 12, 13. There's 1 left over, so there's 1/3 left over for the mixed number. That gives us our y-intercept of 4 1/3, and our slope of negative 1/3. Now again, remember the slope is just attached to either the top or it's attached to the bottom, but not both. So we're going to start 1, 2, if this is our y-axis and this is our x-axis, go 1, 2, 3, 4 units plus 1/3 of a unit above the 4. And that's going to be our starting point. From there, I'm going to move down 1 unit. Remember, I'm not going all the way down to the 3. I'm going down to the 3 1/3. So down 1, right 1, 2, 3. Notice my point is above this 3 boundary here. It's above the 3 still. If my marker would make a point, all right, close enough. Then down 1, right 1, 2, 3. Okay? Or we could go back up 1, left 1, 2, 3. Up 1, left 1, 2, 3. All right, not much to it. Why don't you try number 3 on your own? All right, I'll assume you paused the video, attempted number 3 on your own. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's rewrite this where the right-hand side's on the left and the left-hand side's on the right. I kind of like this idea of y is on the left and x is on the right. It just makes things a little clearer. We read left to right, so there's not much to it. Now, there's no number added to it. That just implies that, hey, there's sort of like a 0 placeholder for where the starting point would be. So we just got to divide both sides by 15, which gives us y equals 5 over 15 reduces to 1/3. And since we got a pretty small grid space, you're going to want to reduce every fraction you can. 0 divided by 15 is still nothing, so my slope is 1/3, and my y-intercept is 0. That means start at the origin with your first point, and then we're moving up 1, right 3. Up 1, right 3. Or down 1, left 3. Okay. I'll freehand it because it seems like the ruler takes up so much more time and we're kind of tight on time for the video. That's what it should kind of look like, except yours is going to be a straighter line than that. Let's check out number 4 and see if there's anything we should do to talk about it. Oh, we've got decimals. That's definitely something different. So we got a couple options, which is nice because we've got 2 examples with decimals in it. I'll show you both of them. So a lot of times, again, people will say, I don't like the y on the right-hand side. It's confusing. I'm literally just going to write a mirror image of it. So the right-hand side, I'm going to rewrite it on the left. The left-hand side, I'm going to rewrite it on the right. Sometimes that's super helpful for people. Now I want y by itself, so that 5's got to go. Remember, I'm not using the sign of the 3y. I'm using the sign of the 5. The 5 is a positive number. It's a positive number. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. That gives me negative 3y equals 1.8x minus 5. And now we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Make sure you guys are paying attention to whether or not this is a negative or a positive, because a lot of times the dropped sign is what makes students do it incorrectly. All right, so this 1.8 over negative 3x, that can be a little confusing. Plus, you got negative 5 over negative 3. We just want to make that into a mixed number. 2 negatives divided make a positive. 3 only goes into 5 one time. And there's 2 left over, so it's going to be 2/3 at the end. The y-intercept is pretty locked in. It's 1 2/3, which means I'm going to start 1 unit and then 2/3 of a unit up above 1. Now, you guys just need to know that 2/3, you don't need to know it's 0.6 repeating or exactly where it is, but just know that it's more than a half. It's more than a half above there. Okay? Now, the slope. Here's what we do to deal with a situation where you got a decimal divided by a whole number, or really decimals in general that are involved in fractions. What we can do is we can multiply the top by 10 and the bottom by 10. You can change it. You can change any fraction you want to by multiplying the top and bottom by the same thing. So what that does is it moves the decimal place from here to here. So now it's 18.0. It's 18. And then that makes the bottom negative 30 when I multiply by 10. Which 18 over negative 30 will reduce quite substantially. Like you can cut them in half, and that would be 9 over negative 15 if you divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. And then if you divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, you get 3 over negative 5. So really what we want to do is we want to say, this is y equals negative 3/5 x plus 1 2/3. It's a lot smoother to work with than with the decimal inside of a fraction, and technically that's not simplified like it should be. So we're going to go, slope is now either 3 over negative 5 or negative 3 over positive 5. So you can go down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, when we move downward, it's got to be 2/3 of the way above this block. So if you went down 1, 2, 3, the point was 2/3 above it. That's why it's 2/3 above it here. Or go up 1, 2, 3, left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, use a ruler. I'll freehand to save some time. And that's that. Now, if you guys have a decimal equation, but you don't feel comfortable maybe with this last move, here's an alternate method, or just another method to help you understand. One way to get rid of decimals at the very beginning of the problem is to multiply by a multiple of 10 that represents how many places after the decimal spot you're talking about. So right now I have 1.2. That means that I have 1 power of 10 that would eliminate the decimals altogether. So if I multiply both sides by 10, that would give me 10x minus, this will move the decimal place over 1 when you multiply by 10. So you got 12y now, and that equals 80. So you got some larger numbers, but the decimals have disappeared. Sorry, changing out markers. At this point, you subtract the 10x, because it's a positive 10x. You're left with negative 12y equals negative 10x plus 80. Divide by negative 12, divide by negative 12, divide by negative 12. And that gives you y is equal to, now think about how negative 10 divided by negative 12, they're both negatives, which means you can call it positive 10 over 12. But then they're also both even, so you can cut them both in half. So that's 5 over 6. All right, so this is 5 over 6x. And then 80 divided by 12, well, we want a mixed number out of that. I'm going to cut 80 over negative 12 in half just to see where it goes. So that's 40 over negative 6. And again, it can be cut in half further. 20 over negative 3. And then that's way easier because 3 goes into 20. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. 6 times. And it's negative because it's positive divided by negative. Negative 6. And then there's 2 left over. So that gives us m is equal to 5 over 6. Our b value is equal to negative 6 2/3. That means we go all the way down. We go all the way down to 6 2/3. And then we move up for a slope 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to do a very short video attached after this for number 6 on the notes. And yeah.